Hey allies, it's Bill Martin here, Jim Bonacci, Rob Boyer over there in the blue, owner of pin number 99. He owns an Alliance Paradigm. Wanted to go through some of the tips and tricks to the hydraulic leveling system. So without further ado, I'm going to let these two gentlemen lead you through. All right, Jimbo.
All right. So, hydraulic leveling system, Level Up by Lippert, 6-point leveling system. Auto level, can be manual level as well. It's got a few important components to it. Most of them you're probably already familiar with, but for those who are not, let's start off with the basics. Side of the coach, you're going to have what you're most familiar with probably, and that's the touchpad. The touchpad is just a digital pad. It is waterproof. It has a digital display on it. And this is what you will be operating your leveling system from. It has a bunch of data on there. It certainly has your voltage right now, but it'll talk to you about your level status at that point. The LED light at different places means different things at different times.
And Jim, with that control panel in there, if you were to ever have an issue with that control panel, there's just a snap lock wire harness on the back of it.
Absolutely. There's a quick disconnect wiring harness right on the back side of it, on the other side of this wall, that you would be able to remove. And then you would be able to change that out. Very much field changeable, easily done by the owner.
So literally about a 15 to 20 second fix.
Easily, very easily.
All right, perfect.
Another key component, obviously, we're going to come in here, is that touchpad controls the system in here. There is an electric motor, a hydraulic pump, and we run through a manifold with solenoids and oil pressure switch in there, and we can get into more detail a little bit later.
So that manifold has all the hydraulic lines hooked to it, right?
It sure does. Those are the lines that go out to each individual slides and jacks on this coach. Now, some coaches will just have it for the jacks, depending on what kind of slide systems you have. But this coach happens to have hydraulic slides.
So let's talk about the reservoir that we're looking at here. This big tank with the pink fluid in it.
Absolutely. It is translucent, so you can easily see through it. It is automatic transmission fluid. It is a very, very simple off-the-shelf product that you can get at any particular auto parts store. Dex Merc is typically what it's called. And see here, there's a sticker here. It says, fill line here. That is to be checked and observed when your jacks are all up and your slides are in. So if you're at your campsite, you've got everything deployed, and you look at it like, oh my goodness, it's low. Wait before you start adding fluid. Let's check it when it's hooked up to your truck instead.
We do get that question quite a bit of saying, hey, my fluid's low. Well, hook it up to your truck and retract all of your hydraulic systems. Then you'll see what the true fluid level is.
All right. Obviously, another main component of the entire system is just the jacks themselves, and they're at 6 points. The front two are considered landing.
A little louder.
I'm sorry. The front two are considered landing gear. They are heavier duty. They are larger. And in our coaches, we're able to access them through the LP compartment doors. So you can see that basically in their entirety back there. On this particular side, you will see that there's a solenoid valve that Rob and I may get into a little bit later. But I just wanted to at least touch on that's where a solenoid valve for landing gear is located.
Well, since you brought it up, Jim, let's talk real quickly about the solenoid valves. There's 5 of them, right?
Absolutely. If you have hydraulic slides.
If you have hydraulic slides.
Right. And there's 3 if you do not. If you just have cable slides in our coaches, then it would only be 3.
Okay. So what does this solenoid valve on this front left landing leg do?
This is the valve that will absolutely equalize. It'll lock the front landing gears in place when it opens and closes. So it allows fluid in and keeps fluid from leaving it at certain points in time. It's an electric solenoid valve that's controlled by just a solenoid wrapped around a pintle valve that opens and closes and keeps fluid from passing through it when it's commanded, when there's no power to it.
Okay. If you needed to adjust one of those solenoid valves, what does it take?
Absolutely. Some of those solenoid valves are periodically may have some bleed by and can be adjusted, very easily done. You take a 5/32 Allen wrench, you insert it into the top of it. Maybe Bill could see in there with Rob pointing at it. There's a 5/32 Allen wrench socket or an Allen screw in there, and you would turn it ever so slightly counterclockwise until it stops. You don't want to put a whole lot of pressure on it. You don't want to wrench on it. It just wants to seat and stop. So if you feel like you need to back it off clockwise and then go back counterclockwise, you can, just until it stops. That way you have a good idea that it has seated.
So basically, if you were seeing any bleed through, which you could notice it if your jack started to sag a little bit or drop, or if you were putting down a jack and your slide room started to open,
Absolutely.
you could theoretically, it could be bleed through in a simple counterclockwise tighten of that 5/32 Allen wrench.
Absolutely. And that could happen on any of the solenoids present. It may not be necessarily the one that you think it is. Hey, my jacks are leaking down or my slides are coming out. You may not necessarily go to that particular solenoid. It's worth checking them all at that point. And the other 4 in this coach are still up there on that manifold.
Well, while we're on this, we'll go take a look at those real quick.
All right. So each one of these is a solenoid valve. We have 2 on the bottom here. And in this case, these are for the jacks. And there's 2 above this aluminum manifold block, 1, 2. And those are for the slides. And again, those are all the ones that you want to check that tightness of that 5/32 set screw on in order to make sure that they're nice and seated and tight and keeping fluid from bleeding through.
Thank you, Jim.
Yes, sir. Rob, would you like to touch on some things that we see out in the field that people commonly run into? Or maybe Bill, you want to run
I
something?
was just saying, why don't we get into some of the basic functions,
Yeah.
And then we can get into some of the things we see and how we can troubleshoot those if it's not working as intended.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I mean, one of the most basic things is auto leveling, right? I mean, we start with the premise that the coach should be on a relatively level surface before we start the process of auto leveling. This system pretty much runs senses can compensate for about 3 degrees of a slope, which isn't a whole lot. Now, when you come over here to your pad after your coach is off the truck and it's clear of the nose, then you want to come over here and power up your pad. And also what's important is make sure you have at least 12 volts of battery power here. Okay. Now I would suggest, if possible, always to plug in your coach and get shore power, because this is a very power hungry system on here. So it's going to take a lot of demand of your batteries.
So if one thing that I've heard is if you're getting low battery power, it'll make a ratcheting sound, a very loud clicking sound. So if you're ever hearing that, we get people calling saying, "Hey, I'm getting a loud clicking sound or ratcheting sound. What's wrong with my coach?"
Yeah.
Typically, it's low battery. That's about 90% of the time.
Absolutely. And so what I do is when I get to my location, I hook up, I disconnect. Well, actually, before I disconnect from the truck, I go ahead and plug in shore power. Then I do go through my disconnect off the vehicle. Then I can lower my front gear, my landing gear with the shore power connected. So that's, in this case, our landing gear is already down. So at this point, the nose is above level. So that's another function. The nose has to be above level for auto function to work.
So basically, once you take the RV off your truck, you don't want to adjust the front leveling before you auto level.
Correct.
Leave it nose high. That's what it likes, and that's what it will remember.
Yeah, if you're in a situation where you come off and your nose is really low, you're going to have probably maybe have an issue. You might want to raise it up a little bit till you get to the nose level, because this front controller in here, I don't think we touched on that one. Come in here so this is the front controller, and it's looking for the rear controller that's underneath the underbelly for level. So that's when we hit auto level, we're going to see the nose dip and then go back up, and it's searching for level between this and the one in the back.
Rob, where is the rear sensor located on our coaches?
It's in the frame underneath the underbelly in the middle. So it's not something that's really accessible offhand. It's not something you can actually look at. But if you are getting kind of issues where your auto leveling is different every time, or it's kind of off kilter, it's possible, however not likely, that one of these controllers is loose or may have fallen off, and then the coach is really going to have trouble kind of doing the auto leveling. You can manually level the coach anytime, so that's always your safe bet.
So that's your go-to. If for any reason it's doing something funky or a little different one time, you can always manual the coach. No issues with that. And we can get you squared away on any of the auto level.
Yeah, and actually I recommend it if you're not on what you consider level ground, especially even after you put any leveling devices on. to just go ahead and manually level your coach, because you want all that weight down on the landing gear system. So depending on your orientation, terrain matters here. So you could, after auto leveling, have your gear come up off the ground. If you can spin your tire, you need to bring it back down and do it manually.
So you break that is one of the more common things that we see is someone calls us and says, "Hey, I got 2 tires off the ground. Is that okay?" Is it going to hurt the coach short term? Probably not.
No, but you should carry all that weight of the coach on its running gear. Remember, the leveling system is designed for stabilization and leveling. It's really not designed to carry the weight of the coach.
So the more points of contact you have, the more stable the coach is going to be.
Absolutely.
Use those tires.
Yeah. So the stroke, if it's a little shorter on the landing gear, if you can, make sure you get all that weight down there, you're going to have a much better experience inside the coach when you're walking back and forth and that, side to side.
So if your auto level picks up one side to help make it level, is safe to say get a couple of 2x10s or 2x8s, put them under the tires, and then redo it so you got something underneath them?
Yeah, you can certainly try that, or you can do the auto or do it manually, where you just bring in because remember, the gear are coming down until they make contact, and then they stop, and then they keep going down until they make contact, and then you can make adjustments to the level of the coach. So also, when you're doing auto leveling, please, nobody inside, because that could throw it off as well. So if your spouse is getting set up inside, do this. I do it where I take the truck off, I do the auto leveling, then we pull the slides out and go inside and start our setup procedure.
And make sure you notice every time he says this, the truck is completely free and clear of the RV. Do not leave it under the RV when you auto level.
Yes.
The coach will not sense that.
Yes, it could eat a truck. Jim?
So when we first start auto leveling, when we hit the buttons, we get a question a lot that, hey, I've only seen one jack leg come down, one of the landing gear coming down. That's normal. Some people are concerned about that. One will come down and hit the ground, and the other one will come down. That's normal. Please continue on as you see fit. Again, that's nothing to be concerned about.
It just senses resistance.
Exactly. It hits down and it senses resistance and it starts shooting fluid to the other side until they both are contacting and the resistance is equal, and it lifts the front of the coach equally.
And so once they both hit the ground and are equal, then it starts lifting the coach simultaneously with both legs.
Correct. Absolutely. Okay. And then when we proceed with auto level, it continues down and starts dropping the legs in the back. Again, not all at the same time. So don't be concerned if you find that some are coming down before others. Again, part of normal operating procedure.
Okay. So it basically goes in a series.
It does. And as Rob alluded to at first here, it's going to, so if we start off nose high, and then it's going to drop down and it's going to come back up, and then it's going to go to do the rear legs, all 4 of the rear legs. And after that, you would be complete with the auto level sequence, and it will say so on the screen.
Okay.
Yep. For just a moment.
Yeah.
You might hear it, you might miss it.
Okay.
One thing that I wanted to touch on before we move too far beyond this is that I've got a lot of calls in regards to using leveling devices, as in Anderson buckets is a very common one. They're a good system. Some of these Lego blocks that some people use, some homemade wooden blocks. In certain circumstances, those can be okay. One thing to be aware of that is if you put them under your front landing gear and you're on a site that's a little bit off level, the front of that coach may not be able to drop down far enough in order to go down far enough to then start coming back up. So it will bottom the jacks out, and it can't go any farther, and it will not continue. So I get the call, hey, it dropped all the way down and I can't get it to go back up. I can do it manually, but it won't continue to auto level. What's going on? One of my first questions is, are you using some sort of a leveling device, a level augmentation device? Or if you are in a situation where the site is so angled that it simply cannot go low enough in the front in order to start coming back up, that will stop the auto leveling process in its tracks. But as Rob said a couple of times, you could certainly go into a manual level mode at that point to get the best case scenario for that particular site, or you may need to reposition your coach.
Yeah, we love auto level, but don't be afraid to manually level your coach. It's not difficult.
And it is site dependent.
It really is.
Every site's different. If you're on an angled site or severe slope,
yep,
you may need to manually level it just to make sure that you're not taking anything out of stroke.
Yep. And sometimes it may be easier than playing around going through the auto leveling cycle a couple times, and you're like, well, the gear keeps coming off the ground. That's a sign. Go ahead and let's try it manually.
So guys, let's talk. Throughout our last couple of years of business, we did have a few instances where a new customer would call us and say, hey, my coach is leveling high on one side when I hit auto level. What's attributed to that?
This is actually typically a very simple fix. It's simply changing some wiring. The control board is getting confused as to which side is left and which side is right. And it's very easily addressed by switching some wiring at the solenoids that we mentioned earlier. If you come on here.
So basically there's a left and a right side solenoid.
Yes.
And there's a push-on connector for those, right?
There is. On the later units, there's a push-on connector. On the earlier units, they're just spade connectors, but the coloring of the wiring remains the same. These two solenoids here, one has a blue and white wire, and one has a purple and white wire. These two, again, are left and right. Doesn't really matter which one or which, but if you find that when you press the left button, we want to find that the left side or off door side jacks come down.
Let's go show them here, Jim,
Absolutely.
On the control pad. So if your coach is exhibiting that, what two buttons are you going to push here? You're going to push.
It's going to be these, but you need to get into manual to do it.
So you scroll through manual mode with those buttons on the left side.
Hit enter. Obviously, we're pretty level here in the bay. It's a good thing. And I press the left and rear together. And you can see back here.
So when he's hitting left and rear, the center and rear jacks on the driver's side of the coach should start to go down. That's how you can test if there's any concern there. If you hit the left and rear button and the jacks on the passenger side or door side of the coach start to go down, then it's as simple as just swapping those two wires with each other, and it will permanently correct the concern.
Rob, do you want to talk maybe about hooking back up to your truck or retracting your jacks so that you could then rehook back up?
Yeah, I was going to bring this up.
Yep,
here real
absolutely.
Quick. Okay. Okay, what was the question?
So we're done camping. We got the slides in,
Yep.
and we're ready to suck up the jacks and get it onto our truck.
Yeah. So what I do as a team, I mean, which you can do by yourself, but once we have everything, all the slides are put in, we still have our wheels are still chalked at this point. And I get there's a couple ways you can do it. What I do is I raise the rear gears up. I retract all the rear gear up, and I just have the front landing gear down at this point, because I'm going to visually line up the hitch, the kingpin with the hitch. And so I may need to raise or lower the kingpin to line up as I back in. I have my truck, I can see it, but I also have my wife, Yvonne. She will tell me if it's lined up and then go ahead and hook up. So once I'm secure with the hitch, at that point,
Rob, I want to interrupt you real quick here.
Yeah.
They do offer a hitch recognition feature on this. We do advise caution if you decide to use this. Always verify. Always verify. But if you simply push the left and the right button simultaneously, that will take the nose of the coach back to where you took it off your truck at. Now, keep in mind, if anything has gone different, if you've removed a big load from the back of your truck, it could be sitting different. The ground could be soggier that day. There could be variables. So just be cognizant if you'd use that, but it is a feature on this.
Yeah. Or if you touch one of these buttons after you've done the auto level. So if you come back in here and you mess with something, the hitch recognition is gone at that point. So
it's a feature, but use caution if you use it.
yes.
Just verify.
Yes.
So one thing that we hear from time to time is leveling lathes can make a little popping sound, just kind of at random. Can you shed some light on that, one of you guys here?
Absolutely. So, occasionally, we do hear people say they're making a popping sound, a clicking sound. People describe it differently. It's simply due to the fact that as it settles a little bit, as things move a little bit, that seal inside the bore is moving ever so slightly, and it's moving kind of in a jerky manner, meaning it's not moving smoothly, so you're getting it pop as it moves. So Lippert recommends that you can remove up to 2 quarts of the automatic transmission fluid or the hydraulic fluid in this case, from the reservoir and add 2 quarts of an anti-stiction fluid. Some people are able to use 4 coil. There are some recommendations as to what particular products are to be used in a situation like that. And then you just flush it through the system, not flush it. You run it through the system, and it decreases that situation for you frequently.
Can you use just like something as simple as a turkey baster to remove some of the hydraulic fluid before you put the new stuff in?
Yep. You could remove it that way. You could remove it with any sort of a pump. But yes, a turkey baster is super easy.
Yep. That's really good. It's really the seal right here. It's kind of flipping is what makes that noise. When that kind of just flips over, it pops. And also when another thing, before you retract your landing gear, you want to kind of wipe these off, because it helps to keep dirt and things from getting in your seals.
It prolongs seal life so you don't get abrasives in there.
So, another thing, you got some folks like to have a little forward to rear angle just for water runoff. Everyone's got their own personal preferences. So when it comes to auto level, is there a way to reset the 0 point? Just basically what the coach is going to remember is level going forward?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. So if we haven't auto leveled this coach yet, but if it knows that if you go in here, it's 3 buttons down or 1 up, and I'm a manual level.
So we're putting it in manual mode.
Yeah, we enter and we see what it's saying right now. We haven't auto leveled yet, so I'd have to auto level and see where it's
right.
So
it's
where
just
it
on the
up.
landing gear at the moment.
Yeah, it's just on the front landing gear, but we're in a pretty level area right now. But once you get where your coach is level, like if you put a 4 foot leveling thing just inside the door, about an arm's length inside the door, and you have it level side to side, front to back, with the system off, you hit this 10 times each.
So turn the system off. You're going to hit the front button 10 times, the rear button 10 times.
There you go.
And then your screen's going to light up.
And it says press enter to set. So at this point you said, hey, my coach is level. I got either level, I put auto level, I adjusted it to where I want it. If that's a little bit of runoff or whatever, because you can set the coach to recognize whatever 0 point you desire. And if that's where you want it, then you just hit enter. It'll do a calculation. It'll say set, and it's ready, and then the pad will go off.
So we do set the 0 point at the factory, but there's no magic to it. We have a level floor here, but if you don't like how we've set it however you're comfortable with.
Yeah, it's not
you don't need to actually put all 6 leveling jacks down. You can, if it's just the 2 makes it level to where you like it,
right. Mm-hmm.
Just put the coach in that position, and that's what it will remember going forward if you do what Rob just showed you.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's no reason why you can't do that as many times or as few times as you feel necessary.
Yeah, another thing too is when you're after you've auto leveled, you're at a site for a while, and say that you don't want to go through the whole zeroing or pulling all your gear up, and you notice that you're staying in the shower, but the water's running one way or the other, and you want to, so you can come out here and you put a level in your coach. You say, I'm a little nose low, so just come out here, get into manual mode, right? You'll just get in the manual, whatever. It doesn't matter what the level is at that point, and just say, I'm just going to bump it up a little bit, and then give it another. It's like, okay, that's good. You go back and check your level. It's level again. You've kind of re-leveled it for your site.
Rob, what are these 4 lights that are around the 12, 3, 6, and 9 o'clock positions? Sometimes people are seeing those. Sometimes they're blinking.
Yeah. What that'll mean is that sensor is low. So if I say, for example, I'll retract the front gear, and we'll get it down here. Okay. So see, it's blinking right there. It means it's low, and it needs to come up before you start to auto level. Okay. So if you come off your truck in this position and that's blinking, you're going to have to raise the nose up before you start the auto level. So you just raise your coach up. Still blinking a little bit. Lights out. Now I can auto level.
So guys, this isn't anything to be afraid of. It's not.
No.
I mean, you really can't mess it up. If you do, shut the power down,
Yeah, you can
Restart
emergency stop. Emergency stop at any time. If you hit the off button, it'll stop the cycle. And really, exposure brings composure when you're working with this, right? So don't be afraid to get out and practice with it before you get out there, so you're not having any issues. We want you to be confident, enjoy your camping experience.
Rob is a master with words. He just said exposure
Brings composure.
brings composure.
My man. Yep.
Is there anything else you guys want to add to this, or are we ready for some questions?
Yeah, I think the questions would be good.
All right.